Wait, so we got a 2005 Dodge Caravan, 3.3 liter. We're gonna go low tech on testing this one. Keys up there, so everything's off. If we grab, this was just towed in by the way. We grab the negative, we put it back, and whoa, that's a lot. It's starting to weld the terminal back in there, and she stinks. That's a dead short. So to have that kind of a short, you know, the lady's not a mechanic, she doesn't touch her own vehicle, so only a couple things that can do that. Alternator's right there. Hey, we got a ratchet too. Let's try taking, oh, if I can do it without breaking it, that off. Hey, got that off one-handed too. Don't need fancy dancy tools for everything. Sometimes you can use the old tool between the ears. Come on, get that off. I'll probably drop that on the ground. Maybe not. Oh, I don't know if you guys can see anything. Come on. I'd like to not lose that nut. Oh, you still can't see anything. Come on. Come on. Oh, yeah. Woohoo! Put you over there. Now, let's see. We can't get you off. Okay, so we want to be careful of this, because if we hook up the negative and it's not welding, then for the most part we're left with a starter, unless there's something else really weird. But that would be live, so we want to be careful of that. Wait, let's see what happens now. That's much more like it. A little tiny. That. Not welding. So, I think we're done. I guess the other possibility, yeah, because if this wire here, if that were shorted against, you know, the block anywhere, if it rubbed through, then that would have still zippity zappity dooed. But probably shouldn't, but let's try if we can get another. No, I don't want to. I was gonna put this on there to see if we got another spark show, but I'd be worried about whether or not I could get it off just as quickly, or if it would get, the ring terminal would get stuck. So anyways, yeah, usually the alternators aren't dead shorted like that, so usually it's not that simple, but sometimes it is. Anytime you're hooking up a terminal to a battery, you know, say you do a big job or whatever, kind of keep an eye out for the level of sparks. You know, if you leave inside, if you leave the key in the on position, yeah, you'll get a little bit more. But I've had a few times where it seemed excessive, and I just went and grabbed my amp clamp with a meter to make sure, hey, what's coming out of there, is it a reasonable amount, or did I accidentally forget to hook something up and something's touching something that shouldn't be. But anyways, in this case, yeah, just that simple. It's just gonna need an alternator. Well, we got it running, and if you can hear that, she's a wee bit noisy. The main cable is off, taped up. That thing is, oh, I don't know if you can see that. It's getting a little hot. What do we got, 320? I better shut that off. Yikes. Okay, what else can we do? Just for grins and giggles, what if we try, how can we put you, maybe, can I get, oh God, magnets. Alright, let's try that. I don't know if we can position that there. I think you can see that. Let me get a clip. If I can't have a hand, then I need an extra hand. Get these back. And we'll put that guy in there. One of these days I need a tripod. Put that on there. Okay, and we'll just go to the case. So what do we got? 1.9 ohms. Keep in mind this was just run, so it was hot. I did check this before and it said 0.8 ohms, less than a full ohm. So that could just be because it was so hot. I would suspect that this resistance probably lowers as it heats up. So does that tell us anything? I don't know. Easier to check voltages when they're running and you know if they're charging or not. But we're here, we got a faulty one. Let's see if this will actually tell us anything. Okay, so got a new one. And yeah, it's new. It's not even reman. I do not like reman alternators. I've had nothing but problems. You're lucky if you get 6 months. Sometimes you don't even get 6 minutes. Yeah. Is that okay? Maybe you can see that. Okay, it's the same thing too. We got the one lead on the positive post, and this one here will just go in the case. And as we would suspect, this should be pretty high resistance, because this would be going through the diodes, so there shouldn't be much of a path to ground. So yeah, I guess you could probably do that as a really quick, really dirty test of diodes. But you know, obviously in the case of this one down here, you know, anytime you're going to see something that bad, you know, only 2 ohms or even less than an ohm, you're gonna know. You won't need to do a resistance check. But that's about it. There is normally when you're checking them, you want to check the field coils. Well, let's say you don't have one that's this obviously fried and it's not charging. You know, there are the two on this one here is 2 wires, so it's nice and easy. One of them will be your field coil, the power for your field coil. The other one will be going to the instrument cluster to tell it whether to turn the light on or not. So this one here, what you could do is you could just test either one. You know, if you don't know which one's which, you better to use a multimeter rather than a high amp test light or something like that. And you just want to see power on one of them. If you see power on one of them, then you're pretty good indication that at least you got that. You know, if you really want to be sure, it's a good idea to check the wiring diagram to figure out which one's which, so you know. You know, of course, if you check them both and if you don't see power on either, well, you got to address that problem before you toss an alternator. Now that would be for one that's just flat out not charging, obviously not one that's shorted. Some of the newer ones are computer controlled, so it's not as easy as just checking for a power. A lot of the newer ones won't have an actual power that runs the field coil. So this one here, the one wire will be the power for the actual field coil, so it'll have a number of amps going through it. I can't remember how many. I think it might even be like 5 or 6. I don't think it's as high as 10, but that will be the actual current that goes through the field coil that makes that magnetic field. And so it does have an actual sizable current draw through it. On the newer ones, they'll just be pulse width data signals, and then for the actual field coil, it'll just draw the power off of the main terminal. So those aren't as easy to check. You know, you could hook up a lab scope to make sure you see something. You know, you hook up the scan tool, you look at the scan tool. Some vehicles, like some of the Fords and whatnot, or the Chevys, I think it is, with the gen monitor and stuff like that. Some of them, when you're looking at a scan tool, it's a little harder to tell what the data parameters mean, what they're supposed to mean. It's not too often. I'm just trying to think. I don't know if I've ever encountered a alternator, a computer controlled alternator, that had an issue with the command to the alternator that, or let me reword that. I don't believe I've ever seen an alternator that was computer controlled, that was not charging, and it was because of a control issue. So not an issue with the main power, but an issue with the inputs to the alternator, and did not set a code. So if you have a computer controlled one and you have an input problem, you're almost always going to get a code or some kind of help on the scan tool. You know what, even the computer controlled ones, just alternators fail. They just, high heat, lots of movement, all that sort of stuff. They only last so long. I don't know what else I can say. Oh yeah, some of the newer ones that have an overrunning clutch pulley. So the premise of this is this has a lot of rotating mass, right? And it has a smaller pulley than the crank. So this will be spinning much faster than the crank. That's why on alternators you'll see a belt will go through more of the pulley, because it needs more grip to be able to turn it. Oh, okay, sorry about that. Had a customer come in. I don't know where it was. But yeah, so these pulleys here, they're much smaller than the crank, so they spin much faster. You rev up the engine, you get these things spinning and thinking real fast. You let off the throttle, the engine RPM drops right away, but this is still spinning really fast, and it'll impart a real jerk on the belt, and then the vehicle is not as smooth. So the idle at least. So what they've done is they put an overrunning pulley on here, much like say a bicycle pedal. You know, you pedal, 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 it's still going, still going, still going. As soon as you stop pedaling, you know, the wheels still keep coasting, but it's not going to turn this. So the ones with the overrunning pulleys to try and make the engine a little smoother, prevent that kind of surge when you let off the throttle. The little cam bearings inside there, they can go, and the overrunning function can quit, and these things can make a hell of a racket. This is just a solid pulley. I believe this one does have an overrunning pulley, the one that's on the vehicle right now, and you can see that the bit that juts out. When those go, the bearings inside, usually the first thing you'll see is, I'll put an arrow, but towards the alternator, usually you'll see a lot of rust dust all over the alternator. That'll be your first clue. It's just an indication that the bearing's gone dry, and it's packed it in. It will sound like an engine knock. You will swear that engine is toast if they're bad enough, and it's just that. You take the belt off and the noise goes right away. So another thing to keep an eye out for, if you hear a really bad noise and you open the hood and you look at the alternator and you see that the front face is just covered in rust dust, and you see a pulley that looks like that, yeah, take the belt off before you condemn the engine. And yeah, what else can I say? That's probably mostly about it. If you're condemning an alternator, you know, if it otherwise it's charging but they're saying it's not charging, don't forget to look at AC output. Sometimes if it's putting out too much AC output, and say you have speed sensors on a vehicle, tranny speed sensors, say if they're 2-wire speed sensors, then 2-wire speed sensors will put out their own voltage. It'll be an AC sine wave. If the diodes in the alternator are cooked and it's putting out too much AC voltage, it can actually overpower those. So you can get stuff like the vehicle thinks it's moving when it's not, just because of that. In which case, if that's the issue, you know, you just unplug the alternator, and if all of a sudden that all works, then you know that the alternator is the issue and it's not something goofy like a tranny. But yeah, for the most part, they're pretty straightforward. This one's just plain cooked, and we'll swap it out. It's a pretty easy job to do. And I think that's about it for this guy. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.